Okay, hello and welcome to the first walkthrough I've done. I put a post up on my Facebook page and on my Instagram and Twitter just to say I'll be doing a walkthrough of one of the tracks from my album and which one do people want. A lot of people requested this one, which is Fear Change. It's a 140 tune, kind of dubsteppy with some hints of trap, like kind of trappy drums. It's got some quite interesting bass lines and synth lines in there, plus percussion and some crazy processing to create some transitions. So we'll start off by letting you hear the track. So if you're unaware of me, I'm Distance, predominantly a dubstep producer, but this could be helpful for anyone producing, whether it's electronic or anything. This could help you, it might not, but anyway, it'll give you an idea of how I got to the end product. Here we go, give you a little play. Anyway, so you get an idea from that. So yeah, I can go into what the tune is made up of. So I suppose the key feature really in this tune is that melody, the main synth. I'll just play that for you. Where is it? That'll be this. And this is a patch I created on Absynth. A lot of people seem to overlook Absynth. Absynth is so powerful for a number of reasons, like some of the filters it's got built in and just some of the little processors in there just do crazy stuff, and also the effects within it are brilliant. You can also pretty much automate anything and add an envelope to anything, and you can use this as kind of a sampler. You can load your samples into this, which I've done in a later part of this tune. Like I created some mad basses and then I've put them in Absynth, so I'll show you that a little bit later on. But so this is the main synth. You get the idea. So I am automating something on the filter for this. Yeah, so you can see the low pass filter I'm automating. So it's kind of closing and opening. That's just to kind of help it move really. And for the intro, just makes it feel like we're building up to something rather than it being open all the way and we reaching how it sounds in the drop, which is this. So by doing that, I've given it space to grow. Whereas if I just come straight in with that, you've revealed all your cards, kind of thing. So like, if you go in this hard, then it's like, well, where do we go from there? And you're going to struggle a little bit, possibly. So that's why I kind of filter things in and out in intros. I've also got another synth doing the same thing pretty much, but this one is just covering a different frequency range. Like sometimes if I can't get a synthesizer to act the way I want it to act, like even with EQ or compression, sometimes rather than butchering that sound that I like so much, I'll duplicate it and then use that version to add the sound or the frequencies I think are missing. Okay, here we go. So this is the layer I've made, which is this one here. So you can notice it's drier. It's a lot drier than our first version, which is this one. Hang on, I'll enlarge it. So this one here, main, mid, bass. So that's this. So there's a lot more reverb on that one than main, mid, bass 2. So together, it's just adding a little bit of body to it. So I'll just mute that one. So it's not doing too much, but it's just adding something. It's just when you've got all the drums and everything else happening, it's just kind of reinstating it so that it doesn't get too lost. So yeah, that's the main element really, as in hook wise. And then I've also got a bass, another mid bass underneath that, which is this fuzz bass. And I've made that using Massive. So this is a patch. I've made it Massive. I'm not going to go too deep into sound design right now, just because that could be a whole video on its own. So I'll just stick to how I've made this tune with what elements and why. So I'll just play this sound. So yeah, it's quite an interesting sound. Like I've got LFOs acting on the sound itself. Just doing a little bit of automation on the bandwidth and also on the wave position. Just so it's just not a straight bass line. If it's just like a straight fuzzy noise, just be a little bit less interesting. And you could see I also have automation on there, which is automating a low cut and a high cut filter. Again, it's kind of filtered off, and then when we get to the drop, it all opens up for that same reason. I've done it to the other sounds. And then there is a fourth bass to that, which is just sub. So I'll just show you that. And this, again, I have made a patch from Massive. I don't know if many people make 808s from Massive, but yeah, I spent a day just mucking around trying to create some crazy kind of subs and 808s with Massive, and it worked really well. Maybe I'll do a tutorial on that. And the great thing about doing it within Massive is I can affect the... Oh, okay. For some reason, it's not... Well, it's still making sounds, but it won't let me show you. This won't move anymore, which is great. But anyway, so I'll explain what I've done. I went into the voicing. Was it the voicing or was it... I think it was the voicing where you can add like a portamento effect. So... So rather than it being the straight notes, it kind of has a little pitch bend into each sound, and I find that just makes it again feel like it's moving rather than just being straight sounds. For this tune, it just kind of gives it something. So I don't mind having a little look at how he EQ'd it. So I've basically because we've got a mid bass, we've got like a main synth lead and a mid bass. So I've taken away loads of the kind of high mids, top end frequencies from the sub, because that's not what we're using the sub for. We're using the sub just for like the solid rumble in the bottom end frequencies. I don't know what I've done here, so I've just done a little bit of EQing leading into that, which I might not even need anymore. And then this little thing is just making it mono. This is a great little plugin from Waves that I use to put stuff into mono when I need it to be, or you can do it the other way, make it really wide. There's no point in doing that with sub. So then if I play you all of these four sounds together, all of them, you could pick out all of them, none of the frequencies are clashing, all working really nicely together. So yeah. So you can hear when they all come in together, they work really nicely. They've all been mixed in a way that it feels almost like, it's one element working together, rather than you sitting there going, oh yeah, this just sounds like it's sitting there on its own, and that sounds like it's sitting here. And I think part of the problem that a lot of people do when they're mixing their own tunes or anything is they spend too long mixing one sound, and they'll do it soloed, which is a mistake in my eyes. It's like, I don't see the point in me spending ages EQing this sound without my whole track playing, because I can EQ it like this and think, it sounds amazing, put my tune in, and everything good about it is hidden because it's frequencies that are being taken up by other sounds in my tune. So any EQing you do, I would suggest majority of the time do it when the whole track is playing, because otherwise you're just making a sound on its own sound great, and that's cool if you're just going to listen to that one sound. But if it's playing with 20 other elements, all your drums and everything, you're better off doing it with everything playing. So if it's not quite cutting through, EQ it while everything's playing, and then you can make it poke out. Good little tip. Okay, so we've had a look at that. Lots of things. So basically, when I make tunes, I make the bare bones of the track, and then I get elements of the tune, and I process those elements, putting effects on them, and all different kinds of things. They could be filters, distortion, some kind of mangling processor that just makes weird glitchy sounds. I export them as audio, I put them back in, and I cut out little gems to help the tune move along. And a really good thing for any tune really to help your tunes, if you've made your loop and you've bundled it all together into like 32 bars or 16 bars, and you're like, yeah, it's cool, it's doing what it needs to do, but it just doesn't feel like my tune's moving along. Always try and have little transitions, so they could just be like a typical swoosh or big crashes, anything. But those are the kind of little things that I'm making. So, for example, let's have a little listen to this. It's little glitch drums. What's that? So that's just helping it lead in. Also here got a rise, which is just a typical rise. It's just some white noise reversed. But together, you'll just hear them. It will help this transition into what's going to happen, or should I say, it gives you the illusion that something's going to happen. You know, so rather than just think, yeah, loop, great. This gives you this little feeling of like, oh, what's going to happen, and it just catches your ear and just keeps you interested. In this case, it's the introduction of the sub. So if I don't have that in there, if I just mute that for the minute. For me, that's got far less impact than it would have if I have these two little elements playing. And here is so this is another transition to help it drop into the main drop. And what's this? I'll just play that. Cool. And I've done some automation on the panning as well. Again, so if you're listening in headphones or in your car, it's just going to catch your ear and make you feel like something's happening rather than just this linear track that, I don't know, just kind of passes you by. And, you know, I really hate the feeling. For me, I always get, well, not paranoid, but I don't want people to just feel like they're listening to a loop. You know, that's, you know, and some tunes are like that. They're just so basic. And I kind of listen to them, and I'm like, how do people get away with that? You know, because I listen to it, and it's like I can hear it. I can hear that this tune, like I'm fed up with this tune already, because I know you just copied and pasted it, and that might be fine, and in a lot of cases it is. But it's just, this is me personally when I'm writing tunes. It has to keep my ears interested, otherwise, to me the tune's not finished, and you'll never get to hear it. So little things like this can really help, and this time it's layered with some white noise again. So if you hear that leading into the drop, I think it helps it land, definitely. Just one more time out of interest, you can hear it without that. To me, it's flat without that. So little things like that will really help your tune move along, and they don't have to be at key elements. They can be in the middle of 16s, anything. So I've got another little swoosh here just to help, and there's another crazy transition. I don't know what this is. So that's just another variation of that one. Let me see if I can open that out. Okay, so this would be the whole thing I've made. This is a loop that I've made. Let's have a little listen to that on its own, so you can get an idea of what I would have cut out of here. There you go. So you get the idea of the kind of bounces I'll be making, and then that's just the one element I want from that. Like, that's all I need to do what I want it to do. And then rather than me searching tons of sample packs or sound libraries to try and find a nice transition or a rise, you know, and knowing that everyone else has got access to them, I'm making them. So like my sounds, I want every sound in my tune to be unique to that track. I don't want anyone else having access to them sounds. And that's always been really important to me in my production. I don't want to just use off-the-shelf samples, because I did that in the early days, and that's fine, you know, when you're starting out. But I remember, like, when I made Nomad, there's just this weird little sample of some kind of tribal, you know, vocal. And it was in about 50 other tunes that I heard by other people, and that's just not what you want. Like, I want sounds where people are like, where did you get that from? You know, and even for people to go and search for it, and they're like, you know, where did he, you know, they can't find it, and they can't find it because I made it. So, and it's a bit like with bass lines, everything, you know, you kind of want to create all your own stuff if you can. I mean, sometimes it's getting presets from synths and then taking it beyond that. So you don't always have to start from scratch. You know, sound design is a big thing all on its own. So if you're starting out, you know, to just get stuff happening, using presets is fine, but just try messing around with them. Try putting distortion on them, or flanges or filters. That's you know, some good advice just to get you going if you're starting out. But if you're kind of experienced in making your own patches in synths, I always recommend that over you just using presets. That's if you want to stand out. If you don't want to stand out, then forget everything I'm talking about. But that's just me personally. So as well as these kind of filtered elements, I also do the same with my drums to help. Like if there's like a little down period or like a I don't know what you'd call it, you know, a little lead into the drop again, or just like a moment of space. So let's listen to these drums. So that's just got some delay and reverb on it. So these drums would have been the original drum sounds from this track, but I've filtered them and I've put them through processes to make this, and done the same thing. I've just cut out elements from that loop, put it in, and used it for this little section here, just to kind of, again, I've just come out of the drop, and I just want a sense of like, right, here we go, we've come out of the drop, let's have a little breather, and then we're going to start again. There you go. I've also got some more drums that I filtered, which is how the song starts. Again, that's going to be these main drums that would be from the, you know, sorry, I'm going to call it a chorus. It's not a chorus, but you know what I mean. So they're the main drums, and then from those I've made this. Again, that's great for like an intro, because it's not full blown, and it's giving you something to lead up to when you get into a drop. And while we're talking about drums, let's have a look at drums. So I use Battery a lot. I've used Battery since the first ever version of Battery. This is version 3. I haven't yet moved on to 4. But it's because more so I'm using more samples on their own rather than putting them into Battery. But every now and then I still reach for Battery. So this is like a kit I've made. Just loads of random sounds basically, but this was a kick that would have come from an older tune or some, I don't know, tune I made along the way, so it's kind of been processed and compressed a little bit, so it's already sounding good. And that's a very important thing as well, is, you know, you don't want it so that every time you're sitting down to write a tune, you're trying to find a kick, you're trying to find a snare, you're trying to make bass lines, you're trying to find synths. Sometimes people go into the studio and you spend a day or a week in your studio and you've not made any tunes, and you know, you feel disheartened, you kind of feel like, what am I doing? The best thing I'd say, if you get into the studio, you're finding that you're unable to write tunes and nothing's really happening, just spend all your time, whether it's a week, whether it's a day, just making sounds. So make bass lines, do loads of these crazy bounces I'm talking about with edits. You know, just make a drum beat and then EQ it, compress it, export it, cut it up, so you've got some wicked kicks and wicked snares. You don't always think you have to sit down and write tunes. You know, if you can just sit and make like a palette of sounds ready, then when you sit to write a tune, you can be more creative so quickly. You're not wasting time picking sounds. You can just get straight on with it and build your tune. You know, and that's why that's why sample packs are so useful, because someone's already done that for you. And sample packs are getting better all the time. Like when I first started producing, I found them pretty shoddy, to be honest, because a lot of them were, you know, either just breaks, so full breaks, and just loops. And you know, loops are cool, but I find them a bit pointless because I want the snares and I want the kicks. I don't want, you know, if you're getting loops, a lot of the time you've got the hi-hat on top of the kicks, the hi-hat on top of the snares, or toms, or rides, or crashes. So single hits, you know, you're getting really good quality stuff like that now. But if you can spend the time to make your own, it's even better because, like I said before, you've got your own sounds that no one else has got. So, but yeah, this drum beat's pretty basic. So yeah, there was some kind of little, just a little variation there of the drum rolls, which I've programmed. Again, it's nothing too impressive, but they're good sounds and they cut through in the mix. They do what they need to do. I know in a club, you know, the kick's gonna be really riding the sub and the bass, and not just be, you know, you're not going to play it out and just be like, oh, hang on, you know, where's my kick gone? The sub's just taking over. So it really is a fine balance when it comes to kicks and basses. You know, your kick needs to come through, otherwise you're just listening to sub, and which might sound really good, but then you're gonna, or to you think it sounds like a good idea, but to be honest, when you're in a club and people are dancing, you know, you need a groove to dance to. You can't just have, you know, it just makes no sense. So it's worth spending the time to get your kicks to cut through. I mean, I could, aside from this walkthrough, go through a tutorial going, you know, a little bit more in depth about how to mix your kick with your bass. There's so many different ways. You know, you can side chain your kick to your sub, which I am actually doing in this tune. I'm side chaining my kick to, hang on, there we go. So I'm actually, yeah, so in this one, I'm actually side chaining the kick to a reverb. So that's a good little technique as well. But again, these are things maybe for another tutorial. Sometimes I bust my drums, like sometimes the key elements, like the kicks and the snares, will go to a bus and I'll compress those together, and then maybe even send that to a parallel compression. Which just makes them really punchy. And if you've got no idea about parallel compression, go on Google, go on YouTube, have another little look. That'll give you an idea. Or if you want me to cover it in a different video, just let me know. So yeah, if there's anything I'm talking about, you've got no idea you know, of any of these strategies, leave a comment below and I'll do another video. I'm looking to do a few more of these videos. So yeah. But in this one, I don't think I did do a bus for my drums. Hang on. No. So all my drums are separate. You'll see they're on separate channels. That's the great thing about Battery, is you can send each one of your sounds to a stereo channel or a mono channel. As you can see, I've got like a low snare there. What's this sound? So that's just like a little percussive sound on top of my snare to give it a... So if you listen, that snare's quite flat without that sound on it. And if I put it back in, just giving it some more energy in the high end. So again, that can be many things, you know, just for it to sound good or to help it cut through with all my bass lines and the synths, because the synths are all quite toppy, and so is that fuzz bass I showed you. So if I didn't have, you know, some little snap in the top end on my snare, you might lose that again. Like on a really bassy sound system, it could drown out those frequencies. So, and to be honest, I'd love to be able to tell you how I know this, but it's just through years and years of me making tunes and then cutting them to dub plate and then playing them out on a system that weekend. Because I'd say a lot of people making their tunes now in their bedrooms, or they don't always get to hear them on a sound system, and not always a good one. Whereas I was very lucky, you know, back in the day when we were playing at Forward and DMZ and, you know, Iration Steppers for sub-dub, you're getting to hear your sound, your tunes on like a proper sound system that's, you know, going to take every element in your low end and really bring it out. So, you know, sometimes I'd say a lot of the dubstep producers in the early days were putting so much bottom end in their tunes. Like, that's all we cared about was bottom end. I guarantee you, if you pull up a lot of old dubstep tunes and put them in and put an analyzer on it, all you're gonna have is low end information and top end. Like, no one gave a shit about mid range in dubstep in the early days. It was just, how good is my sub, and I need to be able to hear my snare. That was about it. Having a snappy snare and loads and loads of sub. But as we all got more experienced and was playing more and more sound systems, you know, you realised, oh, my kick's gone, none of my melodies are coming through, my mid-range bass isn't coming through. So we were literally learning on sound systems, and everyone that was cutting with Jason at Transition as well, he was kind of helping us as well, because he'd be cutting our tunes. He's been cutting tunes for years for sound systems, and he was teaching us what frequencies would help our music translate onto a sound system. So it just comes with experience. And same with anything to do with mixing. Like, some people spend so long mixing their tunes down, and you know, and I'm guilty of it myself. Like, some of my early tunes probably had, you know, 50 versions of them, which is ridiculous. And what I'd say to people is just move on. Like, just make your tune. How it is then is how it is. Forget it. Move on. Start another one. Because every time you start a tune and mix another tune, you're only going to get better. So yeah, don't dwell on the mix downs. Just kind of, you know, as long as you're creating a vibe, that's all that I think is important. So yeah. Anyway, we're doing a little walk through this tune, aren't we? So we spoke about little transitions. We spoke about the drums. There is this little melodic part which I've built using. Hang on, I'll play it to you. I'm kind of doing that just to give some space to the tune, really, because by then it would just get a bit boring if it wasn't in there. Hang on. I just think it helps create an environment around the tune. I just think it helps. Like, if I just left it just playing that melody that's already been playing, again, to me in my ears, I'd think, yeah, I've heard that already. You know, give me something else. So I add other melodies in the same key range on top, just to you know, to be interesting for people to listen to. Now, the whole concept of this tune was I wanted it to switch halfway through. Like, I wanted it to, so like anyone who knows the tune knows that it's got a second drop. So, you know, we kind of have 2 rounds of the normal drop in this, and then we have a big breakdown. And then rather than it just going back into the same drops, I've completely switched it. And that's something I used to do with loads of tunes. Like, I did it with V, I did it with Victim Support, Concrete, which was on Repercussions, quite a few of my tunes. And I kind of got that through, like, you know, some of the metal bands I used to listen to. That's what they did. They kind of like built a tune, and then suddenly it just flips and turns into something completely different. And I used to love that. Again, it's just through this self-awareness of my stuff not being boring, and I love switches just because it keeps your ears going. And that's why I used to really love the kind of 8-bar grime layouts, because it changed every 8 bars. It was just interesting. You know, you weren't hearing the same thing over and over again. Anyway, I'll play you the transition or the breakdown leading into this second drop, and then we'll deconstruct that a little bit. So you know, devastation. So you know, it's completely different from the first drops. Let me just talk about the breakdown. So in the breakdown, I've got this great synth, which is, I think you can buy it, but it comes with Cubase, and it's called Retrolog. It's got some wicked old crazy sounds in it, and yeah, so I've kind of got like a little ARP thing going. And I like it. It's kind of like it's just keeping the tune moving. Like, even though I've taken away some of the percussive elements that would be keeping the rhythm, this is keeping the rhythm. But it's kind of like this repeated thing that's just kind of saying to you, like, okay, I'm still here, but what's going to happen? Like, something's going to happen. And that's kind of the point of this element. So I've got another crazy little drum glitch thing to just keep us interested. There we go. But I really wanted this bit to make you feel, I don't know, a little bit uneasy. You know, like you kind of feel like, shit, what's going to happen? Like something crazy is going to happen in a minute. And this bit here, which I made again from just twisting elements in the tune, really helps that. So I'll just play that on its own. Cool. So yeah, it kind of has that feeling of like, hang on, what's going to happen? You know, it catches your ear. And that's what I wanted, especially in the dance. Like, I wanted people to kind of be getting in the groove of the original drops and be like, yeah, breakdown, cool. And then we come to this big, like, crash. A bit like, hang on a minute, what's happened? Like, has he pulled back the tune? Has he pressed stop on the deck? What's going on? And that's what I wanted. I wanted this like little moment of confusion before the second drop. Right, so let's have a look at what I've done here. So here's our friend Absinthe, and I have, again, my own patch, but this one, whee. Yeah, that's some mad stuff. So that's a bass I would have made in another synth, processed it, and then put it into Absinthe. And then I've actually got Contact, another version of that sound in Contact, but just doing something different. Hang on. Let's have a listen. Yeah, so those two together. There we go. And then to kind of cut through all of the madness, and just again something else to catch your ear, I put these crazy high-pitched little screams. Let me show you those. Yeah, see, they're wicked. Like, if I play it, I'll loop this section here, and I'll play it without those high little pitched screams in there. You know, it's fine without it. It does what it does, but for me, it's just a bit flat. There's kind of an area in the frequency range that's not being utilised. That could just kind of have these little things, and that's what these were for, just to kind of grab your attention. So yeah, I think they really help. I think, what's that? Again, this is something, I don't know how I've made this, but this was, I don't know what that is. I've done it in Contact, but yeah. So basically when I just play it really high up, it's just creating some mentalness. Okay. And then what I do here, hang on, let me just have a look. I reintroduce the melody here, but in a way that it just sounds more sinister. It's just half a, what is it? It's just half a, it's just basically the same thing I was playing earlier, but just half a note upwards. Yeah. And I've kind of pinched it from, like when I was making the album, I was listening to loads of film scores, and a lot of these film scores, they'll have a theme, so it might be this melody just like whatever, and that could be in the intro, or that could be in a love scene or a fight scene. But then when it's in a fight scene, or say like something more sinister, I might be like it's just played slightly differently to kind of give you a different feel. And that was the idea with this. Like I wanted to set up this tune to have a certain feeling and paint a certain picture, kind of a bit more, I don't know, less gloomy, should I say. So I mean, it's almost a bit like, I don't want to say euphoric, but it's kind of it's not necessarily like a sinister sound. It's kind of like energy, making you feel good. It's still dark. I mean, it's got to be dark as me, isn't it? But when it comes back in here, it's the same melody, but it's giving you a completely different feel. Like this is just making you feel a bit more like, yeah, more terrorized, a bit more sinister. So if I play it from here, and then this is where it's going to come in, and you'll see it's got a completely different feel. See what I mean? So, I'm not so clued up when it comes to music theory. So a lot of it for me is just trial and error. But I know when I can hear when it's right. So but try that, like try your melody, but try a few semitones like down or up, just to see how it sounds. Like, and that's a good way to move on a tune as well. Also in this section, like before, I've got lots of little kind of rises and transitional sounds just to help it feel like something's happening all the time. Sorry, that's my mixer going crazy. I've got to mix with the faders move. So, and then we got these little boys. So they're just adding to the tension even more, And then I think I'll just roll out with a simplified version of the bass, and this melody is just filtered right down. And one thing I didn't mention is when I get to this stage, I no longer have a sub track riding underneath to give the sub frequencies. Like, I've managed to get that from this sound. I've managed to process it. I've just added some R bass on it, but I don't think I even really need to do that. It was still quite bassy. And you can see, I mean, I've not got any EQs on this, no compression, nothing. Like, it's doing what it needs to do. And just going back on a mixing tip, so many people get caught up on processing all their sounds rather than actually sitting and listening to their tune and thinking, well, does it need it? Does it need compression? Do I need to EQ it? I guarantee you the first thing people do when they load any sound or a snare or a kick, straight away they'll reach for an EQ or a compressor without even questioning whether they need it. And you're just wasting time, and you're just kind of working for nothing. Like, there's no point. Like, I guarantee you, like, I've been to some people's studios when we've worked on tunes, or where I've come in to mix something for someone, and I've gone to a studio where they've got their mix up, and the first thing I've done is just pressed, turned off all their inserts or all their EQ settings, and they look in horror. It's like, oh, what have you done? It sounds great. It's like, I've just turned off all your processing. And it's that thing, when you're writing music, and because we mix a lot of it ourselves, we just we put in a kick and a snare. Like I say, some people chuck EQs and stuff on it already without even adding a bass, without even adding a synth. And then because you've added a synth and a whatever, you're going to reach for an EQ or a compressor. Now, if you've already added a compressor and an EQ, you're just adding on top of the ones you've already got there. Whereas if you maybe hadn't have had them first of all, I guarantee you half the time, all you might needed to do was just turn up the kick and the snare, or the elements you think are missing. Not think, oh, I need to compress it more. I need to EQ it even more. It's like, no, just turn it up, and then see what happens. Like, if you turn it up and that don't work, then yeah, look at your EQing and compressors, but don't just process stuff for the sake of processing it. That's all I'm trying to get at, really. So anyway, back to the tune, people. And then the idea for this tune, I didn't really want an outro. I just wanted to just stop, because we've had our big second drop that's crazy. I just wanted it to just stop with this feeling of like, what just happened? Like, that was crazy. I need a minute, and that's what this is for. So I'll play it to you. And I've just got a held down, high pitched string. Again, just giving this little feeling of uneasiness. I don't know why I'm trying to make everyone feel uneasy. It's just the darkness in me. I can't help it. There is some light in there. So anyway, that's kind of the tune. There's, looking at it, here we go. There's not that many elements in there, What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 17 tracks. That's it. That's what really does my head in as well. When I am sent tracks to mix by people, and then I've got 37 guitar tracks. It's just like, why do you need 37 guitar tracks? Like, you don't. And the same with drums. I guarantee you half the time I just mute half of the stuff. Like, just spend your time figuring out what actually works in your tunes, and if things aren't working, it's not always about adding another layer or adding another synth or another, layer in your kick, or adding a tom to your kick, or adding more layers to your snare. It's like half the time it's your original sample selection isn't good enough. So the snare you're already using isn't good enough, so find another one, see if that works. I always try and take stuff away before I add stuff, because if you build your tune in the way that you've got your main drop first, then you're working backwards. So you're taking stuff away, And I think then, you know, I don't know really. I mean, it's different for every tune, but I guess I'm just trying to say, if you look at your tune and you've maybe got, you know, like 50 or 60 tracks of stuff going on, I'd question whether you need half the stuff you're doing. So that could be a tip, or you might think I'm mad and be shouting at the screen telling me I'm an idiot. And I am an idiot. What else can I tell you? Yeah, I mean, a lot of the tunes off the album are quite melodic, and a lot of my tunes are quite melodic. You wouldn't think so, because they're quite bassy and some of them are quite noisy. People just think, oh, they're just, you know, there's just bass sounds, but they're not. There's always a melody going on, and I always find it much easier to write a tune with a melody than a track that hasn't, rather than just 808s just going boom, 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 boom. It's just going to get so boring. So I always come up with a melody. I always play them. Again, like I've come from a background where I used to play instruments. I used to play guitar, so I used to write riffs, and that's kind of the basis of everything I wrote when I was younger. And it's the basis now. Like all I'm writing is riffs. That's how I see everything. Like this dun 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 dun. You know, I can imagine a guitarist playing that. So that's why a lot of my stuff has that melodic element. So I would definitely try and spend some time learning a little bit about that. There's so many tutorials now on playing piano or guitars that they kind of break it down, so you don't even need to know music theory. They literally, like, you know, they've worked it out mathematically. So they're like, right, you know, so many steps from this note are basically all of the keys, you know, notes that work in that key. And then you can work by counting those notes. You can work out the chords to that key, you know. So it's really worth going online, just looking into stuff like that, because then you can create melodies, and someone can come to you and you can see that their tune is starting in a certain key, and straight away you'll know all the notes that will work with that. You know, it takes time, but not as long as it would take for you to actually go through your music theory education. Anyway, I hope this has been interesting, hopefully not too long. If there is anything else you want to know about this tutorial or this tune, how I made some of the bass sounds, how I've mixed elements, if you are a Cubase user, you want to know how to use Cubase. I mean, I've moved on from this. This is Cubase 6, and I was, you know, predominantly using this for the album, but I've moved on away from this now. But they all work very similarly. But yeah, you know, anything you want to know, sound design, EQ, compression, anything about this tune, just leave it in a comment below, and I'll try and do another video covering that for you. And I know there's a lot of people doing these kind of things on YouTube already, but there's not many what I would call artists in their own right doing this kind of stuff. So I thought it might be interesting for people to see how I actually do this stuff, and the thinking process behind it. Like, you know, sometimes, well, a lot of all my ideas are originally just jammed out. Like I'm just programming drums and synths and getting a rough idea. But then from that, I do actually think about how the tune's going to move. Like I don't always just copy and paste and just go, that'll do, finish tune, you know. And but that's just me being fussy, and I can hear when other people do that, and I don't, you know, it's fine. I play tunes that are like that, and they're fine for a dance, because people are just going to jump up and down and have a good time. But for listening, for albums, for something that, you know, just a little bit more than just a tune that's played in the dance, it takes a little bit more thought. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for checking out the video. Leave a comment, subscribe. There's going to be more, and I'll be back very, very soon. Peace.